Coming up on AABJ's In Contact, the state of journalism today, how it's changed, and how social media is taking charge.
Our special guest is one of our own from the Atlanta Association of Black Journalists. AABJ's In Contact starts now.
Be informed, you gotta know what's going on in our community. So together we can make a change, you and me. Be in contact.
Welcome to In Contact, the Atlanta Association of Black Journalists award-winning public affairs program that brings you community news you can use from around the metro Atlanta area. I'm Tanasia Kinney.
And I'm Jada Jenkins. We're excited about today's topic, which is about the state of journalism, capturing the value of ethical reporting, and also a popular way of news gathering through social media that's taking on the industry by storm.
According to Pew Research, digital news has become an important part of Americans' news media diets, with social media playing a crucial role in news consumption. Newspapers are a critical part of the American news landscape, but they have been hard hit as more and more Americans consume news digitally. Also, Americans are following the news less closely than they used to. In 2016, 51% of U.S. adults said they followed the news all the time, but that share fell to 38% in 2022. Also, Pew Research reports that Black Americans see a range of problems with how Black people are covered in the news. Almost two-thirds of Black adults, 63%, say news about Blacks is more often negative than news about other racial and ethnic groups.
Joining us now to provide her perspective on the issue is Tiana Faulkner, veteran journalist and vice president of print for the Atlanta Association of Black Journalists Board of Directors, and editor of AABJ's digital news publication called The Byline.
And we must add that Tiana is also a former Miss Black Atlanta of 2005. Thank you so much and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Same. So tell me a little bit about yourself and your background. What was it that drew you to a career in journalism?
So what drew me to my career in journalism is my love and passion for writing. I've been writing and telling stories since I was a little girl, and basically my career started, I actually got laid off from a job in public relations, and so as a means of making some extra money for myself in between jobs, I started freelance writing, basically with the Atlanta Voice here in Atlanta, Georgia, where I was covering headlines and entertainment, and that's where my career took off, and the rest is history.
I love that. And I love that, you're speaking to the love that you have for writing as a writer myself. It's so important. It's such a big part of journalism itself. And something that I always find interesting, way back when we would have young kids riding bicycles and throwing newspapers, and, people would read their news that way. So can you tell us about the current state of journalism?
For me, I think the current state of journalism is in a great place because the news organizations are keeping current with the trends. Everything is digital now. Everything is on social media. And so I think the news organizations are doing a great job as using social media as their platform to present news where you would otherwise find in the paper or in a live TV broadcast. And again, everything's digital now, so people can go online. They can subscribe to newspapers like the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times. That's just the way the industry has gone. And I think news organizations are doing a great job of keeping up with the trends as far as digital media.
Absolutely.
I wanted to ask, what are some tips that you have for veteran journalists who might be struggling, I guess, to make that transition from traditional modes or forms of journalism to this more digital age that's being driven by social media?
I think veteran journalists, the key is just being open to change. Technology is changing, things are changing. We're in the digital age now, and as long as people are open to to social media and to, digital news sources, they will be fine in navigating the industry because they're current with the trends and they're not afraid of change, and that's how they can be successful.
Absolutely. Change is important. And so when we talk about digital journalism, can you give us any tips on how younger journalists can now utilize social media and continue to make sure that we provide accuracy? Because, when it comes to digital journalism, everything happens so fast. So how can we make sure that we are providing accurate journalism while we are utilizing technology as well?
The key to providing accurate journalism is, for me, I would say, is through researching the facts. What is the news? Presenting the news. Is it fair? Is there accuracy? Is it based on the principles of what journalism is and the fundamentals of journalism? And the reporting practices, what are the reporting practices? What are the standards? So I feel if people are sticking to those standards and giving quality news that's transparent, based on facts, they're doing their research, then that's what distinguishes, the fake news or the blogging, in my sense, the blogging that's not necessarily real news, it's opinions from the good quality news that's trustworthy.
Absolutely. Get to the facts. We need the facts.
All right. Now, earlier in the show, we spoke about you being the editor of AABJ's monthly newsletter, The Byline. Can you tell me a little bit more about it? And what are some recent stories that you all have highlighted that you're particularly proud of?
So yes, I am the VP of Print, and it's my responsibility to oversee The Byline. That's AABJ's monthly newsletter. And we basically feature Metro Atlanta media professionals, whether they're journalists, PR professionals, individuals in communications who are African American. What's going on in the world today? What are they dealing with as journalism professionals, media professionals? What did they do during COVID? How can they give tips to help future journalists? We do various topics, and something that I'm very proud of that we recently did, for example, is we featured Ernie Suggs of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution to speak about his documentary, The South Has Something to Say. And that's basically a celebration of Atlanta's influence in hip-hop as we celebrate 50 years of hip-hop in Atlanta. And to me, all of the Byline articles are special because, again, we're featuring Black media professionals and sharing their stories and their expertise.
I love that, and that's so important. And can you walk me through your writing process? Can you tell us a little bit about what that looks like when you think of this idea and you need to execute it? What does that look like for you? What's your writing process like?
When I want to write a story?
Absolutely.
Yes. So, you have this great idea. You think about your audience. What is the topic about? You do your research. You get your key points that you want to discuss in the article. And you find your resources and your references that you can interview. Key to a great story to me is basically research so that you can have the facts.
Yep, that's the cardinal rule.
Yes.
That is it.
Absolutely. And as a media professional, I'm curious to know, where do you get your news and why? Like, what are your trusted outlets?
So I get my news from various news organizations. I'm a journalist, so, and I like to stay in touch or be abreast of current news, what's going on in the world today. So I like the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the Atlanta Voice, BET.com, Black Enterprise, for example. There's so many that I look to, and to me, those are all reputable news sources because, as I mentioned before, they provide content and information that is based on standards, it's actual. There's accuracy, and fairness in the reporting. And the reporting practices are based on journalism fundamentals.
I noticed earlier you mentioned freelance writing.
Yes.
So what would you say to a young journalist who is interested in freelancing and pushing their news out digitally, whether it be Facebook or Twitter?
So the key to freelance journalism is basically knowing how to pitch ideas because you're not a full-time journalist. You're not always going to be assigned stories, and that's okay. That's your opportunity to brainstorm and come up with ideas. Key to knowing some great ideas for that publication is knowing their audience. What types of stories do they feature? That is helpful in the news reporting or, brainstorming ideas to come up as a freelancer. Pitching is key and not relying on others to assign you stories. As far as promote or, publicizing in social media, to me, it's the same as, if it were in the print publication or a live broadcast. If you're reporting the news, again, build your story based on research, knowing your audience, facts, and knowing the publication.
That makes a lot of sense. So thank you so much for that information. All right, we're talking about the state of journalism with Tiana Faulkner, VP of Print with the Atlanta Association of Black Journalists. More to come, so don't go away. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to AABJ's In Contact.
Today, we're talking about the state of journalism with Tiana Faulkner, VP of Print for the Atlanta Association of Black Journalists. So earlier in the show, we spoke about your transition from journalism to PR. So I wanted to ask about what that process was like for you and what skills are necessary to operate in both industries.
So initially, I studied public relations in college. I'm a graduate of Clark Atlanta University. I studied mass media arts, and my concentration was PR. So my professional career actually began in public relations. I was working with a company. The company closed. I was in Ohio. I moved back to Atlanta, hadn't found employment, so I started freelance writing as a means of making extra money. And I've been writing for over 15 years. I have over 20 years of PR and communications experience. And over that time period, I've transitioned between both fields within that time. The skills necessary to be successful in each of these industries is to be a great communicator, to have great writing skills, and the ability to research.
Absolutely, and I love the fact that you mentioned Clark Atlanta University because I'm a graduate as well. And so for those of us who may not understand, what's the difference between journalism and public relations? What is PR for those of us who don't understand?
So basically what public relations is, it's a means of communication to and from. What are you putting out there, and how do people perceive you? What is the perception of what your brand is? How do people see you? What do people know about you? What do people think about you, about the messages that you're sending out to the public? That's what public relations is in a nutshell.
And that's so important, especially when we're talking about a digital footprint as well. PR in digital age is really, really important.
Yes.
Absolutely. And so can you talk a little bit about why you made that shift from PR to journalism back to PR? We know being a media professional is definitely a labor of love, and so sometimes salary has a lot to do with it. So would you say that was your experience?
For me, it wasn't necessarily the salary, even though typically PR professionals do make more than journalists. For me, it was just a matter of finding something full-time, either through public relations or journalism. So I was fortunate to get a full-time PR job, and that's why I'm working in PR now, doing media relations.
Got it.
And when we talk about PR, I can't help but to think about brands, right? And so how we are our own walking brand. So what type of skills does one need and strengths do they need to be able to be successful